Welcome to the Secret Rooms podcast. Shh. In these secret rooms, we dive into the unseen spiritual realm, drawn from revelation, real-life experiences, and biblical truth. I'm Sharon Razia. You can also call me Sherry, and I'm here to help you awaken and transform so you can stop living on autopilot. Each episode is meant to provoke and pull you toward the desires and purpose written into your spiritual design. And because spirituality is a part of real life, we'll also talk lifestyle, relationships, the messy moments, the growth, and the faux pas we've learned from.
Qu'est-ce que je vais te nommer? Dans mon cœur, l'amour sans logique à la raison.
Hey roomies, this is episode 7. This is actually part 2 of what we spoke about in episode 6. And if you missed out, please go ahead and catch up because we were talking about mindset and energy and body and self-image. And we went through this list of what we would consider reckless versus the refined approach. And so go ahead and catch up on that. And we are here today to talk about 2 slightly juicier topics. And I'm excited to chat with you. Number 1 is lifestyle and social habits. So let's start with social habits because this one shows up everywhere, especially online. So I like to have fun, going out with friends, getting dressed up, and making memories. What I'm talking about here is discernment, presence, and dignity. I see it sometimes, influencers, people with large platforms, but honestly, even just everyday people on Instagram posting stories where they're clearly 10 drinks deep, belligerent, falling over, slurring their words, documenting their entire night in real time while intoxicated. And listen, if that's how you want to live your life, privately or publicly, that's completely your choice. But when you put it on the internet, it stops being private, which means you lose any control you have over what's being portrayed. It becomes part of your brand, whether you like that word or not. And yeah, you might not be a content creator or anyone online, but that doesn't mean you don't have a brand or a testimony or a reputation. My PR and communication brain immediately goes into full alert mode. Like red light, everybody pause, let's huddle for a second because those moments, while they might feel honest or funny and in the moment, don't actually communicate what most people think they're communicating. There's a difference between being authentic and being unfiltered in a way that erodes how you're perceived. I've watched certain creators who are really funny, beautiful, charming, genuinely likable personalities. And sometimes I enjoy their content, but every now and then I get this uncomfortable feeling watching their stories, not from judgment, more subtle than that. It's sort of a feeling sorry for them. And that's not the emotion anyone wants to leave behind, especially when the messages they're trying to embody are female empowerment or feminine energy or confidence or desire, self-worth. Those things don't translate well when the version of you people are seeing looks sort of ungrounded or messy or emotionally untethered, even if that's not who you actually are. Enjoying a drink without losing your dignity is refined. It's grounded and attractive, and that applies whether you're in a room full of people or posting online. Because binging on anything, alcohol, attention, validation, distraction, is usually a sign that something else is off. I mentioned this in the last episode where we were talking about binging. So saying I'm owning this while putting out content that shows a lack of self-control isn't actually ownership. It's exposing yourself without having any control or power. And let's be honest for a second, a lot of those posts that people post, especially when they're drinking, read like they're meant for one specific person. And in the moment, it might seem like, oh, I'm being vague and I'm just, being silly or sarcastic. But everything points to the fact that you probably want one person to notice this specific message that you're putting out. But to everyone else, it often reads very differently. It looks like someone drinking their emotions, someone trying to be seen, someone hoping for some sort of reaction. And I say this with care and not judgment. That's not a move. This is where I fully put my PR hat on. Because as much as authenticity matters, being your own gatekeeper matters even more. Not every moment needs to be shared. Not every single emotion needs an audience. Not every wild night needs to be documented. You can share as much of your life as you want. Openness isn't the issue. Transparency is not even the issue. The boundary is more subtle than that, and it's about context. The people who are with you in real life, in the room with you, sitting beside you, laughing with you, sharing a drink with you, they fully feel the atmosphere. They understand the tone, the nuance, the energy of the moment. So whatever you say or do, it lands very differently. It's held inside this living, breathing experience that is shared. Online, that atmosphere of safety disappears. So what people see are fragments, glimpses, moments without full explanation or clarity. And those moments don't stay neutral, they linger, they shape people's perception. And it tells a story about you, whether you meant to tell that story or not. Perception is so powerful. And it's not that perception from other people should shape you in any way. But if you're someone who is building something towards the future, and your reputation does matter, whether you're a person online or not, your reputation does matter when you think about applying for jobs, when you think about brands considering you, when you think about different social circles that you're interacting in, when you think about ministries that you want to be a part of. Perception matters, and if it doesn't have context, it can truly disorient people and confuse your entire brand, your reputation, your testimony, etc. What feels light and playful in the moment can read very differently to someone who's watching you from a distance without knowing your full character or your personality or the type of jokes that you make. Without knowing all of that context, it can read very differently. And I always like to think of it, 5 years from now, what if someone was considering you for leadership, for partnership, for trust and depth, for some sort of opportunity? And the internet doesn't go into length to explain who you are. It just remembers those kind of strange, pivotal moments. And I know with this specific point, I'm speaking to a niche audience. I'm specifically speaking to the people who can relate and resonate with this, because not everybody would resonate with this. But I know that the people who are online and who do have some sort of presence where they're posting often and things like that, this matters big time. And it's really not about shrinking yourself or becoming overly polished to the point of being dull and being like everybody else. It's more about using your discernment, knowing which parts of you are meant to be witnessed, at a more broader scale, and what parts of you are meant to be protected. There's something deeply magnetic about a person who can tell the difference, who knows how to carry themselves in a way that's graceful wherever they are, whether they show up online or in person. On the other side of this, and this goes a little deeper, when drinking turns into a binging session, or when the night starts to feel a little reckless or out of character, there's usually something underneath it. So now we're going deeper into the topic of binging in relation to alcohol or any type of substance. Very rarely is it just about the alcohol. More often, there's an emotional pull and there's this avoidance of something that you're struggling to face head on, struggling to deal with or let go. A feeling that has not been acknowledged yet, and drinking becomes this way to mute it or delay it or just take the edge off so you're not thinking about that thing that you're going through. And it works for a few hours, maybe, but whatever you're avoiding, it doesn't disappear. It just waits for you. It lurks and it waits for you till you're in a quieter place, till you're sober and you can hear your thoughts again, and then bam, it's back. That's why the most self-respecting thing you can do is check in with yourself before you go out. Not in a heavy, restricting way, but ask yourself where you're at emotionally, what energy you're bringing into that night, because awareness alone changes how you drink, how you move, and how you show up, in groups of people. When you're grounded before you walk in, you're able to stay in control of your emotions, your behavior, your intake, and the version of yourself that you're bringing to the table. And the people around you feel that. There's a difference between someone who adds to the energy of a room and someone the room and everyone in it have to manage. someone everybody has to keep an eye on, clean up after, or buffer for. And this is where refinement shows up. It's choosing to be a presence that people enjoy being around. Not a people pleaser, may I add, because people pleasing is not the same thing. Someone who is steady in who they are, who is coming with good intentions, who is coming with a positive and radiant attitude, someone who leaves the night better than they found it, in the conversations that you have or in the things that you're doing that night. Because every time you go out, you're not just having a night out, you're practicing who you're becoming, because every experience that you have, especially the experiences in repetition, shapes you further and further deeper into the person that you're going to be. Number 2 is airing your dirty laundry. Whether it's online, in public, or in rooms that were never meant to hold all of this emotional processing, it's all reckless. The refined approach is discernment and private growth. I've always felt this deeply. Even as a kid, public chaos made me really uncomfortable. Dramatic scenes, loud confrontations, turning personal issues into a massive group entertainment thing. If something is heavy or emotional, I've always believed it deserves some sort of privacy and a container to figure it out in a safe way. And I'm going to add that I haven't always embodied that perfectly. In high school, I got into fights. And I'm talking actual physical fights. I never started a fight and never went looking for them, but if someone came for me, I finished it. There's this one situation, and this is a crazy story. This one situation where I was invited into a bathroom to, air quote, talk things out with an ex-friend of mine. And I walked into what I thought was going to be a mediated conversation, and we were going to talk because I still had some respect left for this person. But when I walked into the bathroom, there were over a dozen girls lined up against the inside walls of the bathroom, and it was a setup. There was a crowd, an audience, and it was just set up for a performance of conflict. And I stood my ground. That's who I was at the time. When it came to fight or flight, I was going to choose fight. And when the fight did break out, I soon realized that none of the girls were actually jumping in to fight. It was just the one person that I went to meet with to talk to. That was the only person who was fighting. And so the fight ended pretty quickly, and no one was deeply hurt or anything. But it did leave me wondering what kind of chaos has to go on in your head to plan something like this, to scheme something like this, and then to actually execute. And that's what happens when you have unprocessed emotions. They end up needing an outlet, and the outlet doesn't end up being a good one when you're acting in your emotions and not giving yourself the space to heal or to think things through or to figure stuff out. And obviously we're in high school, we're not thinking that deeply. And then fast forward like a ton of years, well into adulthood and maturity, and in a place where I think everybody around my age is discerning and mature, a similar opportunity presents itself again. Different setting, different people, but the same potential for chaos. And what happened was, it was in the middle of a large event, and this one, I'm going to call her woman because we were all well into our adult years, called me out in the middle of a room and started to emotionally discharge and just, verbal chaos exiting their mouth. And this person's just lashing out, going at it. And for a split second, I felt the old instinct rise up in me for just a split second. But immediately something calmed me and shut my mouth, and I was just quiet. The instinct to defend myself, to prove myself, and to match that type of behavior was gone. And what I learned from this was that I was able to be peaceful and still and quiet when someone came to fight me in a large crowd or in a large group of people. And this was not a situation that required anything like that. This was a relationship that was dear to me at some point, and we drifted. And there was no need for any type of massive emotional lash out. What would have been appropriate would have been to have a private conversation, to talk things through, to talk about why things drifted and maybe see our differences and walk away. But instead, this was the spectacle that was happening in that moment. And I'm not going to get into any details because I do want to protect the people that it's about. And what I realized about what had happened over many years for me was that years ago in high school, I felt I was needing to prove my strength, that I had to prove my power, that I had to not back down or back away from anything. When it came to fight or flight, I was going to fight because I was still in that phase and that age and that mentality of proving myself. And it actually gave me a lot of relief that I was able to just stay silent when I'm not known to be a quiet person. I'm an extrovert and I'm not a shy person. So I was actually really happy that in that moment I was able to be silent and allow whatever to happen the way it happened. And even if that person slandered me or said something that was so wrong about me or said something really offensive to me, I was able to just not even react. And this time I was able to hold my tongue, hold my composure, and I feel like I handled that with grace because I was able to not react, not have an emotional whirlwind of a battle with this person, and not feel the need to defend myself because I didn't feel like I did anything wrong. And so I really didn't feel the need to defend anything. I was in a very quiet season with God, and that was the beginning. That time period was the beginning of that quiet season with God. And so I was already in a place of not needing human audiences or reactions or even needing closure for a lot of things. I was able to let things go and just quietly seek God about any emotional stuff that I was dealing with and heal and grow on my own. And so when this situation happened, I think I was already in the midst of that type of journey that I didn't feel the need to prove anything. I was like, God sees me. He knows my intentions. He knows my heart. He knows what I haven't done. And so I have nothing to prove. He will prove me. When you really know God and your identity is secure in God, you move differently. You understand that every misunderstanding is clear to God. Every intention that is in your heart, in your mind, is seen by Him. I wasn't being passive and I was not afraid by any means. But because I knew something deeper about God, it just didn't faze me. God sees what people don't see. He sees the motive. He sees the hurt in people. He sees the pride. He sees the confusion. And He handles things far more precisely than we could ever in the heat of a moment. That realization changes you. The fact that you never have to get revenge, you never have to react or stoop to somebody's level, you never have to fight major battles because He does it for you, is such an important thing to know and believe. Because when you believe that, your outcomes change. People stop having power over you. You don't need to fight to win publicly. You don't need to expose someone else to try to read them to filth, even if it would be easy to do that. You don't need to fight those battles out of reaction and emotion. And the way that you know that you're truly in a place of peace and just being grounded in these beliefs and being so secure in your identity is when you don't even have to go for weeks talking about a crazy incident that happened to you. When you don't even need to keep talking about it. When you know that you can just be comfortable in knowing that it will be handled by God in the right way. And that right way might just be offering the other person grace. It might be God healing the other person, whatever that means. It doesn't always mean revenge or vengeance or fighting the other person. God might just want to heal the other person. Whatever that means, He will handle it. And I just release control. There are many ways to also address, any type of conflict, especially if it's deep and it carries emotional hurt. If it's in a relationship that was a long-lasting or long-standing relationship, it might be a romantic relationship or a family or a friendship, whatever it is, you can choose private conversation. You can choose distance, you can choose silence, you can choose waiting, in the calm until the right moment presents itself. And silence, when it's rooted in confidence and faith, is not a weakness. It is refinement. I feel like it's one of the biggest epitomes of refinement. Public drama might feel powerful in the moment, especially when you're intoxicated, but real power is restraint. Real power is knowing that you could react, but you're choosing not to. Not everything deserves a stage. Some things deserve to be handled quietly between you and God, behind closed doors, in spaces where growth is actually possible. Because the loudest in the room is rarely the strongest person. So it's important to understand that life will have eruptions, people will erupt, emotions, will take hold, transitions will happen in your life, you will go through crises. Sometimes it's conflict, sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's transformation. And when those moments happen, the first question shouldn't be, who can I tell? It should be, who actually needs to be involved in this for this to have a positive outcome? Because most of what we go through is not meant for public consumption. Most of it is meant to be processed privately between you and God through introspection, self-awareness, a very small circle of people that you could be accountable to who are directly connected and mature enough to handle it. The more people that you involve, the messier it becomes. Every added voice brings more slander, more gossip, more interruption, and a loss of interpretation and bias. Confusing opinions, people projecting their own emotions and their own feelings towards other people. And before you know it, something that could have been resolved very quietly and smoothly turns into something that is so explosive. I once read a book called The Culture of Honor by Danny Silk, where he talks about the different principles of honor, especially in ministry. And something that really stood out to me was very early in the book, there was a story shared about this young couple in their school of ministry. And they did something that broke the rules of the school, broke the guidelines, and it caused a lot of turmoil and caused a lot of upheaval in some way. And when I think the pastor or the leader sat down with that young couple and spoke to them, he asked this question of, if the issue could be portrayed as a can of paint, how many people have paint splashed on them? And that always resonated with me and stayed with me over the past maybe 12 to 13 years whenever I read that book. If you think about any issue or conflict that you have gone through or anything that you're dealing with even now, if you think about, if this problem was a can of paint, how many people have paint splattered on them? How many people are hurt by this, affected by this, impacted by this? And that's why I like to think that having a close and tiny circle to deal with things, sometimes not even a circle, sometimes just you and one other person, or sometimes just you and God alone, need to deal with that thing. Whoever is involved, whoever is hurt needs to be addressed at some point, but the root of the problem needs to be dealt in a very tight-knit boundary. So refinement is knowing that just because something hurt you doesn't mean it belongs on a stage. And when you really trust God, you don't need a crowd to co-sign your experience. You trust that what needs to be exposed will be exposed, but maybe it doesn't even need to be exposed. Maybe God needs to, like I said earlier, heal it, cover it, correct it in private for that person. So we're not sitting here praying for that person to receive any type of judgment from God. Instead, we're forgiving, we're releasing, and we're moving forward. So your job in that moment, after doing all of that stuff, is alignment. Do not amplify the situation. Move away, step away, pray, and align. That's maturity in handling things directly, quietly, cleanly. That's how you protect your peace, how you protect your relationships, and honestly, that's how you protect your own future and the future of those around you. On the same topic of airing out dirty laundry, but with a different perspective. Sometimes you'll see online a post that clearly isn't random, for example, and I'm going more into a silly tone right now, but when you see people posting like, guys who do this are so trash, or girls who act like this are the worst. And everybody knows that it's not a general observation. It's personal and it's reactive. The people closest to you know exactly who you're talking about, and the people further out just see drama. And no one is sitting there thinking, wow, how insightful. They're thinking, yeah, that's relatable, but we can't be doing this anymore. It instantly communicates that there is something that is unresolved. And I get it. When you're hurt, there's this urge to say something, to indirectly say something, to get their attention, of the person who hurt you, to make them feel it and to provoke some sort of response. But blasting your emotions out on social media or in text messaging or in group chats, that's leakage. That's not actually going to lead to some sort of resolution. When something happens, the most mature response is rarely immediate expression. It's space. Take space. Step back, calm down, get your thoughts in order, feel what you need to feel without an audience, but bring it to God, bring it to your Creator, who will help you see through things that you can't even see with your own eyes. Let the emotional charge settle before you decide what deserves to be said. Because once you post it, or once you say it out, or once you type it, it's no longer just between you and that person. It's now a shared experience for everybody watching. And rarely are the people watching going to come in and help in any way if it's a group that's in that audience, because they're not actually in your position or the position of the other person in your conflict who want to see some sort of resolution genuinely. All right, so number 3 on the reckless side of lifestyle and social habits is chasing attention in a room, or needing to be the loudest person for attention. We've all seen it. The person who has to top every story, the one who redirects every single topic back to themselves. That dramatic interruption or the constant volume, the performance, just looking for some sort of significance to feel seen and heard in that room. And underneath it, if we're being honest, there's usually a belief that says, if I'm not the loudest person here, I'm not going to be seen. If I don't dominate this room, people won't think I matter, or my attention won't be felt. It'll just disappear. But it doesn't read as significance. It reads as hunger. Hunger for attention. When it's that obvious, it feels very unsettling. It doesn't feel powerful. It doesn't feel secure. It feels like someone trying to convince everybody in the room that they're worth something, instead of just being that person who is worthy. People don't actually enjoy one person talking the entire time. It's not engaging. It's exhausting and draining. When every single story becomes about one individual, the room just starts to get awkwardly silent or just a little weird. So the refined edit of this, on the other hand, is to let your presence draw people in. Do the talking and let it be felt, and then listen intently when others are speaking. You have no idea how powerful it is to listen deeply. It's knowing you don't have to fight for attention because your energy holds value and weight. And here's the irony: the most magnetic people in a room are rarely the loudest people. They're the most people who are in tune with themselves. They ask questions, they listen to your stories and things that you're saying about yourself with actual interest. They notice details and they make other people feel seen. Everyone is most interested in one thing, and that is themselves. Let's be honest. And if you want connection, give people space to exist. Invite them in. Let them talk. Let them expand. Even if you're extroverted, or even if you're very naturally animated, there's a difference between starting an energy and initiating it and overpowering and taking over. You can tell a story, share a joke, create cute little moments, and then just let the room breathe. Maybe you are the vibe, but let the room breathe. Let other voices rise. Let the conversation circulate. That in itself is a skill. Engaging others, letting others have a moment is a skill. And then you take their moments and you amplify it and you compliment other people and you let other people shine. That doesn't take anything away from your own self-worth or your own attention. If anything, it just makes you a really great person to be around. Number 4, serial dating with no standards. This would obviously be reckless. The refined would be dating with clarity and boundaries. I know a lot of single people and they're amazing people. They're all catches. I don't know anyone that's not a catch. But in today's culture, people feel the pressure to constantly be out there. And I hear this all the time, and I hear it on social media too. People always feel the need to be on the dating apps and events and parties and singles events and just booking dates every week and trying to stay visible and in circulation. And yes, meeting people does require effort now, It's different from how it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. But for years, most connections started online. Organic in-person meetings became kind of rare. But that's slowly shifting again. But there's this pressure to always be on the scene, and that's a very real thing. So here's the problem. When dating becomes a numbers game, your energy shifts into lack mode. It shifts into, air quote, I need to meet someone, or I don't want to be alone, or the clock is running out, or where's my husband? That mindset reads as urgency, which leads to desperation, even when you don't mean for it to be that. So serial dating without standards, it keeps everything at this like surface level. You never actually go deep. You're not able to unpack something and unravel yourself because you're just going from one thing to the next. You're constantly restarting. That could be draining. That could be emotionally exhausting. First impressions, small talk, chemistry checks, and then no one actually gets to see or know you deep because you're always moving on to the next. And your icks comes so fast. But when you're refined, the energy, it doesn't rush. So ask yourself this. If you're in any way resonating to this, ask yourself this. What do you bring to the table? What kind of person complements that? What are you available for, and what are you not okay with? Have standards that are deeply aligned with who you are, with a strong sense of self-awareness. What you expect, you should also embody. So dating with clarity, it means that you don't just say yes to everyone. You don't just go out on dates to, fill your calendar or to fill a void. You don't entertain potential people that contradict your values or your standards. Instead, you move very intentionally. You allow for there to be depth and time in each relationship that you are beginning, or even between each relationship. Let there be depth and time. Let there be growth. That's what makes you more magnetic. Whether it's to men or to women, that's what makes you more magnetic. Number 5, partying every weekend with no direction. This is reckless. What is refined is intentional rest and celebrating the wins. So there was a time when going out weekend after weekend was the norm. I guess for the millennial generation especially, where there was a lot of clubbing and house parties and just constantly being out. Restaurants, bars, like whatever it was. But that culture has deeply shifted. Most people are choosing now to be intentional and celebrate instead of constantly stimulating themselves with being out and just going through the motions. And that shift, it makes so much sense. This is why I think millennials have gone through the most and done the most and gone through the most changes and adapted the fastest. I think the millennials are brilliant, but I really enjoyed this kind of mindset, especially from Gen Z, where they're not in a rush. They're not striving to constantly be in motion and constantly go from one event to the next and just live that life, but instead they're a lot more intentional about how they're celebrating and where they're going and how they're spending their time. They're a lot more chill and calm, and I feel intentional. And so when you party just to party, it becomes a routine and it loses meaning. And you're just doing it to fill that, deep, dark feeling that you have looming on the inside. You need more and more just to keep feeling something. And refined means that your energy is different. You focus on your goals during the week. You build, you create, you work on yourself. And when there's something great to celebrate, like a birthday or a milestone or somebody's promotion or a launch, you show up fully, not drained or restless or distracted, but you're so present and you're joyful and you're intentional. That kind of energy really stands out because you're so specific about where your time is spent. You're so specific about where you're going, how much effort you're going to put into that place, who you're talking to, who you're hanging out with. You're more intentional. Because when someone has purpose in their daily life, their fun feels earned. Like, I earned this. I worked hard, I was productive, and I accomplished some things, and I earned this. Now I need to go and celebrate in some way. I need a night out because of how much work I've put into either my inner growth or actual work to make money or to produce something, to build something, to create something, to serve someone, whatever it is. I've put in that time, and now I need a little break to go and celebrate. So it comes from a place of just growth and goodness and positivity, and not from a place of lack. Okay, so number 6, gossiping as a way to bond. Obviously reckless. So the refined would be bonding through depth, honesty, and humor. So this one is quite subtle and common. Some people build every new connection on the T, on either sharing gossip and stories about other people or critiquing someone else. Sharing drama, bonding over what's wrong with another person or what's wrong with a place. I've seen this a lot, especially working corporate. When one thing happens at work, in your team or in your department, one thing happens, it has this massive ripple effect and a lot of people get impacted by it. But what I started to notice was that the culture then becomes impacted and influenced heavily, carrying this dark cloud over it the more people talk about the issue. So when this one issue happens, maybe it doesn't affect someone who's like a fourth or fifth layer to the closeness of the issue. But when that person who's that far out starts talking about it and, how it's a problem and why it bothers them and why they hate this and that and how their team is always doing stuff like this, when they talk about this, it becomes so normal for the culture. It's like a disease that spreads. And I'm not innocent of this either. I did catch myself. I think it was 2 years ago. I felt like this real heaviness with all of the changes that were happening in our organization. I felt this real heaviness, and a lot of people were just very tense and anxious and upset. And the more upset they were, the more they would kind of lash out at each other. The more they would lash out at each other, the more people start talking about it and reacting to those situations. So there's less grace and less of an ability to, okay, that person made a mistake, let's move on, let's move forward. Instead, it's, did you hear what this person said? Did you hear what they did here? And then we all get caught up in that culture, and then suddenly that culture is consuming you. I used to have nights where I would go home and feel like, who the heck am I? Like, why do I feel this draining energy over me when usually I'm an optimist? What is this thing? It doesn't even feel like it's me. And then I had to learn to separate that culture from myself. I had to learn to shut my mouth and stop ruminating in the negativity and the gossip that just takes over the entire culture. And that gossip might not even be about like one person. It might be like an organizational change. And then in regular life, it might be about a person or something dramatic that happened, or, a story about somebody that's just salacious. You might just hear a story and you might share it with someone to think, oh, this person will relate or find it funny. Let's talk about it. And then you do connect over it. It then becomes this thing that you start ruminating on, or this thing that just grows bigger than it should. And it never ends well. It never ends well. Any friendship that you build over gossip or over critiquing or criticizing or hating on another person, it will not last. It might feel instantly exciting, but it's built on a negative foundation. If you're bonding with someone by tearing someone down, or someone comes and shares like this really crazy thing about this random person and says, oh my gosh, did you know this person's like this and they do this, this, and this? And you immediately bond because it resonates with you and you've experienced the same thing, so you're bonding. But what makes you think that same person will not go to someone else and say the same thing about you? Never underestimate. If a person grows their relationships through gossip, never underestimate that you can be the next one on their chopping block. So refined connection feels a bit different. It's built on a shared curiosity, shared interest, honest conversation, depth, intent listening, humor, etc. And humor is powerful. Don't discredit humor. When two people can genuinely get each other's humor, that's such an ease and a flow. There's like warmth to it, and it creates a bond without damage. And depth, it builds closeness, it builds intimacy, not awkwardly like trauma dumping or interrogating someone's secrets, but gradually just asking real questions, genuinely wanting to get to know the other person. I feel like small talk has a place. I'm not a small talk person. It's kind of hard for me to just stay in that layer for a long time. But small talk is useful when you're at networking events, or when you're at some sort of Christian event, or you're just meeting new people. Maybe it's a wedding, maybe it's some sort of communal event. You're meeting people, you're saying hello, you're just getting to know people on a light layer. Yeah, small talk is great for that, but staying there forever, that's where connection dies. So refined presence is curious, it's interested in the other person, and it's very intentional. So asking thoughtful questions and listening deeply. It's responding with understanding and actual effort. I love when people really think about what they're saying and not just spewing words. Like when they're really thinking about what they're saying to you, even if it's over text and you're texting each other and you're telling a story or whatever, and they're listening to the story and they're responding intentionally by listening deeply and speaking about the things that you're talking about. There is so much effort put into that without even thinking, that you should really appreciate it when people do that. Because it's very easy to say, yeah, cool, okay, wow, cool, and just give you reactions. But when someone actually listens and puts in effort and gives you an honest response, it's valuable. You actually don't need any gossip to connect. And what you need to connect through is emotional intelligence, thoughtful humor, or shared interests. And this applies to everyone: men, women, workplace, regular life, church, anywhere. All right, so to sum it up, the thread through all of this episode: reckless energy chases where refined energy attracts. Reckless energy is when you desperately need something and you're lacking, but refined means that you're choosing. Reckless is when you fill silences with noise and distractions, but being refined is being comfortable with presence where you've worked on your growth and your inner self at the soul level. And then when you come out and you're speaking and you're connecting with people, it's just felt. That's what attracts people and real connections to you. Being grounded, self-aware, and intentional and genuine, and just carrying that presence. All right, so part 3 of Reckless versus Refined will officially be on episode 8, because this turned into something bigger than I anticipated. So I hope this conversation was as interesting for you as it was for me to talk about. I didn't end up going into too much detail on the stories from the past, but I think you get the essence of it. This isn't about airing out history or reliving old trauma. It's about growth and perspective and learning from past instances. And honestly, it's about being able to look back and smile at how much we've all changed over the years. So in the next episode, we're stepping into something deeper. We're talking about feminine energy and masculine energy. So femininity and masculinity. What's reckless, what's refined? Where we're overcompensating, where we soften, where we finally learn to move with intention instead of reaction. So if this episode resonated with you, made you think, or even just kept you company while you were doing your thing, I would love for you to share it with a friend, or leave a like or write a comment on the Spotify page and let me know that you're here. I want to know who I'm connecting with. And if something personal came up for you while listening, or you have a topic you really want me to cover on the stream of conversations, you can always just DM me on Instagram at Secret Rooms Podcast. I genuinely love hearing from you, and I've been getting messages from different people here and there on WhatsApp and in my DMs, just saying which parts they've been resonating with, and it's honestly made my week, made my day, and it helps me just continue creating the right type of content and sharing the right type of messages with the people that are listening. So I want to know who's listening, what's landing, and what's shifting. Again, thank you so much, and I will see you on the next episode.